So normally I don't really use notes, but I get a little emotional when we talk about this achievement gap, because the people we're talking about being on the wrong end, I happen to know personally. I happen to, at one point, have been one of those young people. So I think what we're talking about here is ensuring that all of our children, as my colleague said, are educated. All of our children. This is beyond the law, creating the law, the letter of the law. This is a moral imperative. This is something we must be working on. And I think we've spoken about it for a long time, but we haven't been real about this issue. And I think in a state like Connecticut, where we are worse than a nation in some measures, we really have to look at this in a different way. We talked about this in too clinical of a way. We talked about education policy. That's nice to talk about. I'll tell you what we talk about in my community. We talk about how when we walk around, we see children whose eyes are devoid of hope. That's what we talk about. That's how we understand the achievement gap. We talk about how we hear gunshots, and we hope and pray that when we hear those gunshots, that the worst that happens is somebody's wounded. And we talk about how we feel in our communities. We feel desperation on the parts of people who are our neighbors. That's the achievement gap to me. This is an issue about life. And at the same time, this issue is pro-life and pro-choice. So it's an issue that's not bipartisan, it's an issue that's nonpartisan, because we're talking about whether or not mothers and fathers have the ability to choose a better life for their children by giving them an education, and they don't have that in this state right now. That's what we're talking about. And so we have to recognize that we didn't wake up here with this just happening to us. This was done by us. Brick by brick, we have built the wall that stands as a barrier to these young people. And brick by brick, we must tear it down. And so I'm very happy to stand here today. I'm proud to stand here today to say that I am standing here with a coalition of people, legislators, parents, children, and we're going to go around this state and find out what really needs to be done so that I and every person who is a part of this coalition can reach our hand out to pull our brick off that wall. Thank you.
Next, we're going to bring on Danielle Smith, who is the campaign leader with this Campaign Learn concept. Come on, Danielle. You can take it from here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle K. Smith, and I stand here wearing, first and foremost, a proud hat, which is that I am a graduate of public schools here in Connecticut. I attended public school K through 12, and the fact that I was able to leave my education, well, attain an education that allowed me a foundation to then go on and study at some of the most rigorous and prestigious universities in this nation and arguably in the world is something that I take very seriously and I'm incredibly appreciative of. But at the same time, I am painfully aware of the fact that I am also an exception, that I am not the story that is told by most of the students who come through the public education system in Connecticut. And that is something that's uncomfortable and it's actually unacceptable. And it's because of that that I feel compelled to work in this issue. And it's also because of the fact that I believe that there's been so much given to me that this is the way in which I am most able at this time to give back to my community. The achievement gap, as has been discussed already, is very simply that distance between the number of students of color, from low-income families who achieve at a very high academic level as compared to their white middle-class counterparts. And so it's that distance when we look at the fact that if we were to put 100 randomly selected African-American children from any one of our urban districts in a room and to ask them to perform basic math, reading, and writing at grade level, only about 30 of those children would be able to do so. And if we were to take 100 randomly selected members of their peer group who are middle class and white from any one of these same districts or one of their neighboring districts, about 70 of those children would be able to accomplish that end. And so when we compare that, that leaves us with about a 40% gap, and that is something that should be just cause for indignation on the part of every person in this room and any person hearing that around our state. But up to now, there has been a lack of this indignation that would drive us as individual citizens and as leaders in our community, and in other cases as legislators or elected officials at the local level, to take the type of very deliberate action that would be necessary to not just address this issue, but to solve it, to eliminate this achievement gap. Because the truth of the matter is that there are schools already in our state that have done this. So it's not a matter of whether or not it's able to be accomplished. It is simply a matter of if we are willing to do what we know works. And so I am incredibly honored to be here today, to be able to be in the company of individuals in our legislature who have decided that they will step up and be champions of children and champions of education, because that's something that we have needed. And it's something that we have seen growing over time. And I believe that this moment that we have in history, where we have an unprecedented investment in education and public education, provides us a wonderful opportunity to step up as the state that is 50 out of 50 and finally eliminate a problem that has been with us for far too long. Because it will mean, as we've already heard, life for families all across Connecticut, and we all benefit when the most vulnerable among us are thriving and are doing well. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. And as we will continue, we have a very brief program, but it was important that we could hear from those who are affected by this issue directly and constituents from across the state. So I ask that you please give attention to all of the individuals who are talking today. Their comments will be incredibly brief, but they are important, and I think that they will provide us a very cogent starting place as we continue this discussion in the coming weeks and months.